yeah, you guys like songs about drinking, right? Like in being a bar band or whatever.
You know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where using a number generator and the Rate Your Music punk charts, we choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. That's the premise of the show. We're not really doing that today, though.
Nope, not at all.
This is our first in a two-parter, I'm assuming. Hopefully, we have 2 episodes worth of material here. We will see. We decided that just like all the other music journalist outlets, we too were going to do a retrospective, except not just of the year, that'll be coming in 2 weeks, but of the decade. And
I haven't seen very much end of the decade coverage.
I saw one for movies.
Yeah, I've seen more for movies and TV, not very much about music.
Maybe
So.
it's easier for movies and TV, though. There's less of it than music.
Yeah.
Or it's
yeah,
easier to determine like what the best is in film than in music.
Yeah. The consensus is larger.
Yeah, because music is like so subjective, because whereas film is too, they all tend to follow a narrative structure for the most part. So, and music is something that it's just like, well, my album is nothing but just plinkling piano keys, some acoustic guitars, and lots of yelping.
Yeah.
Or jazz. So, yeah, music's so subjective, and there's so many different types of music that it's, I guess, a little harder to narrow down. My guess is that you're going to start to see more of them after the new year, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels weird to do it after the fact.
I guess because maybe they're following my personal rule of you don't talk about it till it's over.
Yeah, well, we feel pretty confident that there's not going to be anything that happens this month that makes the decade. So,
well, the way we're going to
start on our retrospective, a little earlier.
So what we're doing is we're going to take a look at every year in this decade, so 2010 through 2018, because for 2019 we're just going to do our best of. So, and we're going to primarily look at punk music, because that's where our podcast is focused, and it just makes more sense. We're kind of making this up as we go along, so I don't really know. I guess we could talk about it as it went along. I want to talk about like kind of the bigger trends of the years, looking at what punk looks like over the decade, maybe our personal taste, like how it's changed over the years, and then even the way we consume music. I don't know if you just want to do that like as it comes to us, or if you want to kind of lay that out now.
Yeah, we can just kind of go year by year and see what takes shape.
Yeah, sure. So we will start with the year 2010. What? We're in the middle of the Obama years.
Not the middle. We're like the first quarter.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
this is halfway through his first term. So 2010. For each year, we'll just look at like the first like couple records on the Rate Your Music charts for each year, just to see what the general consensus is before we get into what we were actually listening to ourselves.
Yeah, we can just look at, that first page and see what jumps out.
Yeah.
So, you want to jump into 2010?
Yeah, so it says on Rate Your Music, the number 1 album of 2010 is The Brave Little Abacus. Just got back from the discomfort. We're all right. Who?
Yeah. I still don't know what the deal is with this band. We've been talking about this every single time we see them on these charts. They're always at the top. They have like 2 releases, I think, and I think they're like the number 1 or number 2.
Yeah.
For the years that they came out. 2010 Midwest emo.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really, really feel like I should have known who this band was then, and I have no idea. So they must have been a studio project, or I don't know. They had no connection to any of the other bands playing that music at that time.
Yeah.
Just a complete blank for me.
Yeah, I don't know how they got number one. I will say that the main guy, the Adam Demirajan, who's in Brave Little Abacus, he's also in that band Lilith, who actually had an album this year that was really good. So, but they've been on these charts for a while now, so I don't think it's a retroactive. I don't think Lilith is that big that it would retroactively cause that album to be number one. Yeah, anyway. Number 2 is LCD Sound System. This is happening. Whatever. Not punk.
Yeah. Number 3, this one makes sense.
It is Nails, Unsilent Death. A record I like. I like Nails for the most part. They're kind of the only band of that style that I like for the most part. But they also kind of kick-started what hardcore would turn into over the middle period of the 2010s. So like this record was a big deal. People loved it when it came out. It had staying power. But the copycats didn't come around until maybe like 2013, 2014.
Well, I don't know. There's a Black Breath record on this first page as well.
Yeah, I
kind of fits in that same super grainy distortion metal hardcore thing.
But they're essentially a metal band.
Are they?
They're real thrashy. Yeah, they seem more of an extension of that crust punk thing that was going on the post-Cursed.
Yeah, I guess I just feel like the people who were listening to Nails were listening to Black Breath.
Yes, they were, but...
And all of those bands that followed in that wave of crusty, super dark, hardcore, grindy hardcore.
Well, that's the difference. Nails is more grind, Black Breath is more crust. And there is a distinction.
Sure.
There is a distinction. You wouldn't say Napalm Death and Tragedy are the same thing, you know.
I wouldn't say they're as far apart as...
No. Well, crust is...
having entirely separate genre tags might imply. But, hey, this is the world of minute genres. I mean, we're looking at Rate Your Music.
Number 4 is Women. That's another band that I've seen on here before, and I went, who? Their album Public Strain. Okay, whatever. Rate Your Music has, I guess it's a thing we've been calling Rate Your Music Core, which is the nerdiest music nerds are the ones rating stuff on Rate Your Music, I guess. So then you're getting like these weird, tiny little, I don't even know how else to describe. Women features a member of the band Preoccupations, who actually kind of had a critical hit last year with their record. They were also called Viet Cong, who they were a big deal when they first started for negative reasons. People were like, you shouldn't call your band Viet Cong, because none of you are Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And that's a history of indie men doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And, getting real defensive about it.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, number 5.
Titus.
This one isn't one I really like, but it's a big deal, and I recognize its significance. It was definitely popular then. It's not like... doesn't feel like a retroactive thing. Titus Andronicus, The Monitor.
It was a big deal then.
Civil War Core.
Yeah.
I feel like it was. I mean, it was pretty critically well received.
I remember it being talked about a lot. It was on BuzzGrinder all the time.
If you remember BuzzGrinder.
Yeah, a niche music site.
Yeah, you probably don't. Further down the list, I mean, we don't have to hit every single one, but there's a couple of different maybe some trends I would want to tie together.
Well, before you say the big ones that you were personally listening to, is there anything else that you were not listening to on here? I guess not really. I guess the big ones are the ones we were listening to. Yeah. So 2010 was smack in the middle of the emo revival, and the most iconic record from that time period and that specific sound is actually number 10 on this list, and it is Snowing's I Could Do Whatever I Wanted If I Wanted. This was a huge record for me. The band in general was very important to me, as well as like the 24 other bands that came out in their wake that I listened to obsessively for quite a while, actually. But
yeah, I mean, there's a couple of pretty solid records on this first page that tie into that. You've got Joie de Vivre, The North End. You've got Everyone Everywhere, their self-titled album. I'm sure if you go onto the second page, you'll see a little bit more.
Yeah. Looking on my personal list, that year was also Castavet's The Echo and the Light, which I love Castavet quite a bit. Grown Ups put out more songs that year. As far as the twinklier bands, everybody used to... What was it called? It was called Twinkly Shit. It was called...
Twinkle Daddy.
Someone else called it Glitter Mommy. What else? Cancelo Worship was the one that got thrown around a lot.
Noodle Tweens.
Yeah. Noodly mathy tapping emo with very shouted vocals. More Cap and Jazz, less American football. But there was also the more American football inspired stuff too. As far as
everyone picked their favorite Cancelo band and then emulated them.
Yeah.
To a fault in some cases.
Yeah, they kind of wore it out. 1994 put out Fuck Your Head. Native put out Wrestling Moves.
Yeah. I have on my notes I have Native Wrestling Moves was tailor-made for me in 2010. Like, I listened to that record so much. It was right in that I felt like they were leaning on sort of the post-hardcore side. They were a little brainier, I guess, than emotive.
They were like a borderline... They were like that middle ground between Screamo and the noodly mathy stuff. Which then we could branch it into the Screamo records that came out that year that we were listening to. The Saddest Landscape put out You Will Not Survive. my favorite Saddest Landscape record? That's the one with the guy with the cigarette in his mouth on the cover, right?
Yes, I think so. I didn't get into Saddest Landscape quite so much in 2010. They were a band that I probably listened to a little later on. I think my biggest, one of my observations about 2010, as I was kind of making my notes, it's the year that I feel like my tastes really started to solidify.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I was settling specifically into punk as my home base.
Mm-hmm.
Because up to that point, I was still listening to a fair amount of like metal and like the more experimental metal stuff. But looking at my records for that year, I mean, it was You Are Beneath Me by End of a Year. That was probably my most listened or second most listened record of that year that came out that year.
And their last best album?
Yeah, I mean,
I was fully obsessed with End of a Year. And then they changed the name to Self-Defense Family, and then wrote the same record over and over and over and over again. And I got a little tired of that. But the End of a Year stuff, and like the little transitionary period when they were going by the full thing, and then like the first couple Self-Defense Family records, I was all in on End of a Year. Listening to them all the time. You're Beneath Me. More songs came out that year as well, which is probably their best. No, the Death Wish self-titled is probably their best EP. But the one with the Talking Heads cover is maybe their second best. And that's the emo core, sort of. I guess they were early on.
yeah, well, yeah.
That Embrace Rites of Spring style emo core.
Don't try and tell them that's what they sound like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dag. That sort of general DC post-hardcore sound. This was also the year I got into and was immediately let down by Tiger's Jaw. They had released their great self-titled record the year before, 2009. I want to say, and I didn't start listening to them until 2010.
Yeah, I want to say they're
kind
the
of
same
with
year.
everyone else.
Well, I remember distinctly being told by our friend Robbie, you got to check out this band Tiger's Jaw. He talked about them like nonstop. It's probably the first time we actually hung out with him. And you got to check them. That record actually came out in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we probably didn't become really aware of them until like the tail end of 2009, beginning of 2010. So, yeah, like everybody, we were like, this Tiger's Jaw band's pretty cool. And then they put out the Balance and Composure split. And everybody was like, huh, well, it's just a split.
Yeah.
Not realizing it was a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
Then they put out Two Worlds. And everybody was like, oh,
Yeah.
the sophomore slump is real.
It's just not a great record.
No.
It's an
It's
all right record.
Yeah, it's
fine.
okay. It's okay, which is a huge letdown when your previous record is the self-titled. The self-titled.
Yeah. And I feel like I've revisited it a few times. I mean, that was a record I pre-ordered.
Yeah.
I was stoked. And then I got it and I listened to it. And I was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it kind of killed all their momentum, really.
It did.
Which, I don't know. I guess they're still really successful. So maybe it didn't. But
Well, everyone left the band.
Yeah.
I mean, they did the Spirit. Oh, that's what happened. The Spirit Desire EP came out in 2009. So they did the self-titled and Spirit Desire, and everybody's like, oh, shit, yeah. This band, can't wait for Two Worlds. And then, they put out Two Worlds. And everybody went, oh, cool. They also did a split with Sidekicks and a split with Tiny Empires. Tiny Empires are a band I like very much as well. They didn't.
Yeah. And I should have been listening to the Sidekicks in 2010 instead of Tiger's Jaw. If I could trade,
Yeah.
I'd probably take the Sidekicks.
And then, everybody left the band except for, Brianna and, what's the other dude's name?
They were the couple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah, Tiger's Jaw. But that was also that was the thing. That was the other part of the emo revival. So there was that.
yeah. And I mean, you could probably tie that to what are some other big records that year?
I was listening to that Stay Ahead of the Weather EP. We Better Get Going If We're Gonna. The only Aaron Weiss record I like. but that's also because the rest of the band was Castevet.
Evan Weiss.
What did I call
Aaron
him?
Weiss is from Me Without You.
Yes, that's right. Evan. There's also the Castevet Into It Over It. Split, Snacktown. I was listening, Day Trader put out their demo that year, which is the best thing they ever recorded.
The Day Trader demo.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. I saw
like
them.
This is kind of, and that reminds me, the early 2010s, I feel like that was a really big thing. Like a great demo by a band that would then go on to not be great. I feel like that happened a lot.
Yeah. I was listening to way more EPs and splits back then as well. I don't know if it's because I was following everything that these labels were putting out, and they just put out more 7-inches, so I wound up listening to them more often. Or, because this is also during the time period where you could throw like 10 EPs on a CDR and burn it and listen to it in your car, and like like every single song a band has released. This was also the year of mixtapes kind of blowing up. Mixtapes put out maps, and I thought about growing up and a short collection of short songs. This is also the year. This is probably the best record that came out that year. Iron Chic's Not Like This came out. Probably still my favorite record of 2010.
That's one of the best records. Like top 5 of the decade.
100%.
My notes, I have a note here that says it's one of the few instant classics I can point to from the decade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was immediately, everyone was like, fuck yeah, this is the best punk record I've heard in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and it's still incredible. Like, I can still listen to that record, and I know every word, and it means so much every time you listen to it. And there's so few records that do that.
And you know what happened
10
too?
years later.
This was also this is the 1-2 punch of Iron Chic's Not Like This and Reviver's self-titled LP.
Right.
So while Reviver kind of fell off for me, like I personally don't like that record as much as I used to, you could not escape those two bands in 2010. And in fact, they were the catalyst for one of the defining sounds of the early 2010s, the like Latterman inspired, no idea fest punk sound.
Yeah, it's some of the other bands who put out records that are kind of in line with like a gruff pop punk sound. You've got the Menzingers.
Yeah.
You've got which album is that? It is Chamberlain Waits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of going off of a little bit off of the Gaslight Anthem sound too. But you've got
Big Kids put out Hoop Dreams, which we talked about extensively.
You've got
Off of Their Heads put out In Desolation.
Make Do and Mend. They were a pretty big deal right around this time period. The Dopamines, Expect the Worst. I feel like that kind of fits into that general like fest punk sound.
Mm-hmm. Slow Death put out their demo. The demo with Mike Yerg and Patty. And then they immediately left the band too.
Got everybody's hopes up.
Yeah. I was probably definitely listening to a lot of Mikey Erg and the Ergs at the time as well.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't really released much solo stuff around this time period. This is also when Joyce Manor kind of started their thing. Joyce Manor put out Constant Headache and...
The High Five Pizza Pop Punk thing.
Yeah, and the... is this the same year as the Summer Vacation split as well? Thought it was, but maybe not. Maybe that's the next year.
Yeah, September.
Oh, okay. The Joyce Manor Summer Vacation split was probably like my number 2 most listened to thing that entire year. I love Summer Vacation very much, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. The Timeshares Captain We're Sinking split, the Paramedic Sprainer split. Oh, Sprainer put out Cut and Paste, their first record, with the wiener poopy news. Yeah, so this is like the kind of the birthing of that sound. This is also the year Forming put out their first, well, not their first, yeah, maybe their first. The only one that was actually pressed on vinyl. Their self-titled EP. This 2010 was like a really big year for me.
Yeah, it is. And I was thinking we're spending a ton of time on 2010, but it really was huge.
Yeah.
Personally, and I think culturally for punk.
It was the last time we were relevant.
It's when we peaked.
Yeah.
No, that actually happens a little bit later for me. We'll talk about that. 2010 is also this is the year of the first Bars of Gold record.
Yep.
It is the return of Mark Paffey. And just confirming and reinforcing my love of Bear vs. Shark, because I'd probably gotten into them like the 2 years leading up to that Bars of Gold record. And I think Bars of Gold really solidified my love of Bear vs. Shark and kept them, because when you have a band that only has 2 records, it's easy to see them falling off. Especially if they're a band that you didn't see when they were active, Yeah. And you didn't get into them when they were an active band. And if there's not something that's kind of keeping them relevant in your mind, it's easy to see them falling off. But Bars of Gold, I know that one hit me harder in 2011, but
yeah,
I remember being pretty stoked when it came out.
Man, in 2010, I was also listening to a shitload of hardcore, which would fall off for me in the second half of the decade. This is the year of Ceremonies Ronard Park and Danger's Messy Isn't It? Kind of like two sides of the same coin. That fast, angry, pissed off hardcore that was becoming kind of dominant at the time. And then Ceremony would go and change their sound right after this. But this was also when Ceremony kind of changed their sound from just straight up fast punk to like this weird Minutemen inspired thing. And then they would then turn into what they turn into later. But Dangers was the punkier version of that, I guess. But I was also listening to lots of stuff like Birds in a Row. Burning Love put out their Songs for Burning Lovers. Coliseum put out House with a Curse.
Yes, I was just looking at that on the charts. Incredible record.
Blacklisted put out Eccentric King. Undark and the Radium Girls put out their EP Dark Love, a band that I loved that no one else listened to.
That's a really good record.
Insecurity put out their little 7-inch.
Yes. There's an Integrity record.
Yeah. There's
that year. Blackest Curse was really good.
Yeah. There's an Integrity record almost every year, though. Starkweather put out The Sheltering Night. That was a big deal.
But I remember that Integrity record.
Yeah. Mountain Man. Remember them?
Yeah.
Protestant. Glasses. I've got so many just like tiny little records that no one listened to. Kerouac. Torch Runner put out Locust Storm. Comadre did the Glasses split.
The one other thing we really have to talk about, 2010 is the release of the first Forgetters EP.
Oh yeah, double 7-inch.
Double 7-inch. The best songs, really, that they had written, and seeing them live in the Milestone and being like 5 feet away from Blake for 2010 me is just like seeing Bruce Springsteen in 1978. Like that's the closest I've come to that kind of Like, I'm so close to someone who's so important to me and influential to me. And I remember listening, before this EP came out, listening to the bootlegs of, like, that show and, like, one of the other shows. It's like, that's what listening to bands in, like, the 70s and 80s was.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to bootlegs. Like,
yeah. Which that wasn't really the culture at the time. It wasn't a bootlegging scene. Even by 2010, we were all kind of over live albums as a concept. But I think it was because it was Blake. Blake was back. It was the first big thing he'd done since Jets to Brazil. Jawbreaker was so important to everyone, and we were so hungry to hear what his new band sounded like that we were just like, what about this live show from New York? What about this Cat's Cradle show? Like, what?
You're trying to find a good recording.
Not Cat's Cradle, Milestone show, yeah. Because there were two versions of that Milestone show. One was real rough, and then one was, like, bumped up. And I listened to it so much, and I was at that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was more excited to see Blake at that show than when I saw Jawbreaker this year. I mean, Jawbreaker is amazing, but maybe I'm a little older now and just a little more jaded. I guess, yeah. 10 years ago, I would have been 23, so that would have been, right? Or 24.
Yeah, I would have been 20. Yeah. Woo. That was really, though, 2010 was a very special year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I mean, the notes I made were just the things that I want to talk about.
Yeah,
I'm sure
true.
There's plenty of other things that I was listening to that I can hardly believe I was that into. But I don't know. Like I said, it does really, really take shape here. And then even more so in 2011. So unless you have any other lingering thoughts, maybe we can move on.
No. We can move to 2011. I'm going to try and pull up the Rate Your Music chart while we're doing this. You know, it's funny. We spent a long time on 2010, and for me personally, it might be the year I was most excited to talk about, because as I was compiling these lists, you fortunately still had your Last FM charts, and I did not, because there were periods where I didn't have Last FM, and then many more periods later where I didn't have Last FM, like scrobbling. I didn't have a reliable computer for a long time, so I had to rely on old Tumblr posts I used to do. I'm so glad I did those now. But back then I was like, why am I doing this? There were a couple years that I lost completely though, because I don't know where I posted those lists. Maybe on our defunct blog, where some of the years of posts are gone. They've just disappeared.
Probably took them down and in between transferring them back and forth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of them I just didn't put back up.
I think there's 2 years of my album lists that are missing from that time period. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where I was posting them, but I was missing them. So I got 2011 to pull up if you want to look at it.
If I can look. Well, yeah. Let's see. I've got 2011 pulled up, so let's dive in.
All right. So 2011. Number 1 is La Dispute's Wildlife. I was never really into La Dispute. That was La Dispute. Darling.
I want to say I listened to Wildlife once and probably didn't listen to it again.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. What was No Sleep Records? Back when No Sleep was a very important record label. No Sleep, Run for Cover. Who else was around that was really big? I was listening to a lot of Count Your Lucky Stars and Protagonist, Top Shelf, even though now nobody likes to talk about them. Or no, Tiny Engines is the one. Top Shelf is still clear. Yeah, Tiny Engines. Tiny Engines will become a bigger role later for me personally.
Vacation by Bomb the Music Industry. I didn't listen to that one.
No. I don't like Jeff Rosenstock bands.
I only listened to... There was a minute there where I got into... Well, probably listened to it more in 2011, but their 2010 EP, Adults, Smart, Shit Hammered, and Excited by Nothing. There's a lot of exclamation points in the title. There's ellipses. I think that sums up Bomb the Music Industry.
Their song titles.
Yeah. for some reason I got really into that EP, but I didn't listen to this album. And that was probably the last Jeff Rosenstock thing I cared about at all. So,
well, they put out too much too fast. I think that was part of it. They were one of those. They're very prolific. Weird, even though looking at their stuff, it doesn't seem like there was that much. But they put out like a record every year. 2005, they have 2 records. So, yeah, there was a lot. I'm not a fan of that band. I've gone on record saying I really do not like Jeff Rosenstock as a vocalist or a songwriter. Moving on. Number 3, Joyce Manor's self-titled album. As a scene, I guess.
They were huge.
Were they huge then, or were they huge with a certain type of music fan? Because they were the Bay Area. They friends with Summer Vacation, admitted to ripping off Summer Vacation, but I never expected them to become a music journalist band. You know,
they're kind of more than that, though. I know young people that like Joyce Manor currently.
Interesting.
Like early 20s, late teens people, and they seem to have maintained that audience.
That's strange.
More than the punks who would have been listening to them then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still very popular. I was never into it. I don't know. It never clicked with me. I don't think it's bad, but it didn't do anything.
I was into them by association of the Lauren Records scene. I was very much into all of those bands. Like I said, the split they did with Summer Vacation was one of my favorite things they ever did. I liked Constant Headache. I liked this record. I like the album that came out after, even. But 2011 was also the year of Condition, which is Summer Vacation's only full-length album. And they were another band that I was completely obsessed with. God, I love that band so much. Later changed their name to Winter Break, well, after they lost a member. So, completely new band.
I didn't listen to Summer Vacation then. I don't know why. I remember you posting about them on like Tumblr and stuff, but for some reason I didn't go out of the way to listen to them, and I would have really enjoyed it if I had. I think I probably heard like maybe a couple songs on a split, but I didn't really get into them until Winter Break, which we can talk about later.
They were an EP split single band, demo band. Like, they have more of that material than they do that full length. So I was fully listening to everything they had. Like, it was one of those, I threw everything they had on a single CD and just blasted it for a year straight. So it was pretty rough versions of songs on there, but yeah, I was very, very, very into Summer Vacation. But they were, what do you call that? They were definitely a cult band. Because the people who were into them were really, really, really into them. They were critically acclaimed, but they didn't have much exposure. So, like, the few music places that talked about them raved about them, but there weren't a lot of them. Anything on this page before we get into our personal listening habits? Number 14.
I see.
Number 12 and number 14. Very indicative of the era. Number 12, Pianos Become the Teeth, The Lack Long After, and 14 is Touche Amore, Part in the Sea Between Brightness and Me.
The long lackluster, as I call it. I had a little moment with Pianos Become the Teeth, and then when that record came out, it really bored me. Mm-hmm. And I stopped caring after that.
Oh.
Touche Amore, To the Beat of the Dead Horse, got super into that.
Yeah.
Listened to it a lot. I definitely listened to Parting the Sea a lot then, but I think it expired in 2011. Just like January 1st, 2012, no longer listen to Touche Amore. Just like completely lost interest in that band super fast.
Also worth mentioning, Defeater put out Empty Days and Sleepless Nights that year as well. And Title Fight put out Shed. Like, all of these bands kind of represent a particular brand of emo, post-hardcore that I was not super into. I liked the more traditional screamo stuff and the more melodic emo. So, like, it was just, like, not enough in either direction for me to be into these kind of bands.
Yeah. Yeah, this is that year where I feel like there's this harder edged, like, melodic hardcore, harder edged pop punk. I feel like that was going on a lot here. This is also the year where a lot of the emo bands were turning into alternative bands.
It's the year where emo bands, like, disappointed everybody.
Like Balance and Composure and Basement.
Yeah, Into It Over It.
They turned into, like, rock bands.
Yeah.
It's kind of precipitating the grunge, slacker rock, emo thing that would happen a few years later.
Mm-hmm. And then the weed emo.
Yeah. Then,
the Philly emo scene.
Yeah.
Which Philly always played a big part in the emo revival with the noodly stuff, and then they got more melodic as a scene, and then they got grungier as a scene, and it's weird how that specific scene kind of defined a lot of punk for this decade. I was surprised that they did, honestly. I don't know if it was just a very active scene, and that's where a lot of bands are coming out of. And we're on the East Coast, so that could have also played a factor in it.
Yeah.
Anything you want to call out on this list before you go to your personal
Not really.
habits?
No.
So-
Well, okay. I'm surprised to see this, and I think we've seen it before, but Being Without by Barrow is number 30. I am really surprised to see a pretty short-lived North Carolina screamo band in the top 40 on Rate Your Music. That's a great record.
It is. They were a great band.
If you like that lane of sort of Euro-sounding screamo, check that one out. Pretty good. They've got a lot of post-rock influence, too. We've played with them.
Yeah.
And I just think that's cool to see.
Yeah. A band that we know or knew personally being still so highly regarded. That's really cool to see. You know, I was at their last show, too. The earlier this year, I guess? Yeah, I guess it was. It was during the old Flings reunion. No, it wasn't old Flings reunion. It was Odds Are and Barrow's last show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool to see.
Well, when I was looking at my 2011 listening habits, I was pretty impressed with what I was listening to then. I would still listen to a lot of it. I think probably the most listened to record for me, one of the most listened to records was Phone Home by Big Kids.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
as good as their debut, but I still really liked that record.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of shifted towards that grungier, like a little more 90s indie rock, showing some Pavement influences.
They were still very much doing the same type of music, though. It was just a little more refined, I guess. But yeah, Phone Home was amazing. Their Big Kids were just an amazing band in general, which you would know because we talked about extensively on our episode about them.
But we also have very, very high on my list, Ninth Man by AJJ.
I wish I had a bullet big enough to fucking kill the sun. I'm sick of songs about the summer, and I hate everyone. I'm gonna load my rifle, gonna aim it at the dying star. I wanna live in a bubble, I need a getaway car. Hey,
AJJ record?
Yes, because the next one is Christmas Island, one I don't really like that much. It's still got some okay songs, but it just doesn't do much for me. Are we sure that's 2011?
Yeah.
How did I miss that one?
Yeah, came out in September.
Was it not on... Where does it fall on the Rate Your Music chart?
It doesn't.
Did those idiots change this definition of what they are?
Yes.
What do they call it?
Have it listed as indie rock, indie folk.
God.
Which is just wrong on so many counts.
I wonder what I'm missing because of Rate Your Music. Because that's what I use to draw a lot of my list together.
Not indie folk. Let's go ahead and vote that down. It's not folk rock. It's not...
This is what's wrong with this stupid website.
They have it described as folk punk, anti-folk on the secondary genres, but of course those don't show up.
Yes, Knife Man was probably one of the records I listened to the most in 2011.
Yes.
Very
Easily. I mean,
there's a lot I was actually listening to. Yeah, 2011 I was listening to that AJJ record. I was listening to Sprainerd's Fun Titled a lot. The best Sprainerd record, hands down. Then they broke up not too long after, and everybody was real sad. And then they came back, and everybody was excited. And then they heard the album, and then they were like, "Oh, it's fine." But Fun Titled, if they could have just maintained that momentum, then I feel like their follow-up would have been a little better. But I was also listening a lot to Timeshares. Their album Bearable came out. This is fully in the Latterman influence, fest punk thing. Sundials put out Never Settle. Good Luck put out Without Hesitation. Signals Midwest put out Latitudes and Longitudes. Holy Mess put out a self-titled. Restorations put out their self-titled. There's a lot going on here in 2011 as well.
Yeah, there's on the heavier side, Infrastructure by Ghostlim, Like Shadows by Ampere. Those are both great records. Some of the few heavy records I would still listen to now. Because for being in a hardcore band, this is kind of the period where I'm starting to lose my interest in hardcore.
Well, we were also in a hardcore band with metalheads too, so they weren't listening to much hardcore either.
I remember, but yeah, some of the other stuff I was listening to, I listened to Glockamora a lot.
Ghoul Intentions?
Like, a lot.
They were one I never got. I listened to them a little bit, but I didn't get super into them. I was listening to Direct Hits album Dome Splitter before they turned into a concept band. I don't know what they are now. They're like, all they write songs now are about atheism. And like, they used to just write songs about monsters. So it's just weird like shift that they made. But Dome Splitter is my favorite Direct Hit record. Probably maybe the only one I like, to be honest.
This is, I've got a couple of other interesting records that I want to talk about from 2011. The last Teenage Cool Kids record Denton After Sunset came out in 2011, and I was so disappointed in it. I tried really hard to like it because probably the year before I had gotten really into that band. Queer Salutations is a great record. Foreign Lands was really good. They did a split with Daniel Stripe Tiger that had two really cool songs by them. But I just could not connect with that record, which it's funny. I do think this is an influential record.
Well,
because I feel like this is the 90s indie rock, Pavement, Built to Spill sound that a lot of bands would copy in the next couple of years.
Well, members of Teenage Fan Club would also go and do Parquet Courts, which became one of the biggest...
No, that was Daniel Stripe Tiger. Are there Teenage Cool Kids members in that band too?
I thought that's what it was. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just Daniel Stripe Tiger. Because those two bands are like tied together in my memory, just because they did a split together.
Yeah, they're pretty different sounding.
They are, but
there's also in 2011.
No, Andrew Savage was in Teenage Cool Kids and Parquet Courts.
Okay, yeah.
And Sean Yeaton was in Daniel Stripe Tiger. So why don't I like Parquet Courts?
I don't know.
I mean,
They moved to
that record's okay.
moved to Brooklyn, and
That record that came out last year, Wide Awake, it's okay. I get it. I get why people like it. It's poppy, upbeat. I get it. It's just not for me.
the what's another? There's another big letdown. Moscow Penny Ante.
Yeah, so, Dead to Me put out African Elephants, and it was the first record without Jack, and it was like, oh, we listened to it a lot, but we weren't liking it as much, mainly because they let that other dude sing, like, so many songs, like, most of the songs, and Chicken only sang, like, 3 or 4 songs on the record, and it's like, well, Chicken's one of the things we liked about the band, and he's still here, and he barely sings on it. They let this new guy sing all the songs. So everybody was excited for Moscow Penny Ante to come out because it was the one with New Mexican Disaster Squad and what was the other band he was in? Damn, his name is Sam. Virgins? Was that the other band he was in?
Maybe.
But everybody was like, oh, can't wait to see what this guy does with Dead to Me. And it's fine. It's a better record than African Elephants, but it's still nowhere near as good as Cuban Ballerina and what's the other one?
Little Brother.
Yeah, Little Brother.
Yeah, that record just almost doesn't register for me. Like I knew it came out and I knew I listened to it, but I couldn't. If you asked me when it came out, until I made my notes for this year, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I probably would have guessed 2012.
Yeah,
it didn't
work for me. Like it was fine. Like I said, I thought it was better than African Elephants, but I think I listened to African Elephants more often, and I tried to make myself like that record. That may be part of it.
Yeah.
He was also in Gatorface. It's Sam Johnson. He was in Virgins, New Mexican Disaster Squad, and Gatorface. All bands that I actually kind of liked. Like they were like a faster type of fest punk. Still gruff vocals, but it was like borderline hardcore. Was this the record that some of the Western Addiction people came back for as well, or was that later? Dead to Me.
I don't know.
But then Jack came back and everybody was happy and they're like, come out an album, and then they all have only done an EP. I Want to Die in Los Angeles.
Yeah. You know what I realized? I completely forgot.
What?
From 2010 was American Slang. I have such distinct memories attached to that record. We don't have to dig into it, but it does spill into 2011 because 2011 is an off year for Gaslight. But Brian Fallon tested the waters for his solo turn with the Horrible Crows album. It's fine. It's taking his whole Americana soul influence and turning the volume down, not trying to make a punk record. It's a pretty good record. There's some really good songs on there, but it didn't catch on. People weren't ready for it.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Looking at 2011, I see a couple of things that were big disappointments. Fireworks put out their second record, Gospel, and everybody was like super pumped on that record because Fireworks had a unique fan base that the Wonder Years then stole. They fully usurped the Fireworks audience, and I think Fireworks was a better band. But then Fireworks put out Gospel, and everybody's like, no thanks, we don't want this. And then they've disappeared. But they're apparently back now with a weird, I don't even know what that record's going to sound like, but they are not going to sound like Easycore, which I guess Gospel didn't sound like Easycore either, and that's why everybody was disappointed with it. But another disappointing record was Lemuria's Pebble.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's the Bridge 9 record, right?
Yeah. I don't know anyone who liked that record. Like, no one. Lemuria were
the songs weren't good.
Essential listening. Their Get Better and the first collection are masterpieces of...
You know, I would say that I would have said that before Pebble came out. But I tried to like Pebble, and it made me retroactively dislike Lemuria.
I remember distinctly having a discussion with one of my Last FM friends. We were both very much into the band Lemuria. We had seen them at Lunchbox before Pebble came out. I remember talking with her about how excited we were that Pebble was coming out. And then when it came out, we were both like, well, that wasn't very good. And it's one of their least liked records, even on Rate Your Music. It has a 3.10. And to give you an idea, Get Better has a 3.39. And The Distance Is So Big, which isn't a great record, but is slightly better, has a 3.23. So they lost a lot of people. But they stuck it out. They're on a hiatus now. They had to cancel their last tour. It was going to be their last tour for a while, and then they had to cancel that. So I don't know what's going on, but there sounds like there's something serious going on with someone in the band, so not to speculate exactly, but they've been kind of cryptic about what's going on. Sheena put out an EP this year with, it's Sheena, Anika, and Augusta. It's Anika from Chumped and KDLN, and Augusta from... Which band is she in? Cayetana. That's that one. So, yeah. It's interesting how people were super into them. But another disappointing record that came out, though, was Alkaline Trio's Damnesia.
Did you have high hopes for it? I feel like
we all had high hopes for it. It was the one...
I did not.
It was after This Addiction.
Ugh.
And we were like, oh, they're coming back and doing an acoustic album. Maybe that'll be good. It was just acoustic versions of the old songs. And man, it didn't work for anybody. I don't I remember people were excited for it. And then it came out and no one cared. Maybe it's because we were just wanting the old Alkaline Trio back so bad. We were like, oh, we'll be fine with an acoustic album. And we weren't really.
No, it wasn't good.
We wanted the old Alkaline Trio back. And then Small Brown Bike came back and put out Fell and Found. And that was another disappointing album.
Boring.
Yep.
You know what's not a bad record? And I'm so glad I was going through the charts because I saw it. Napalm Dream.
Oh, yeah.
This is the setup to a disappointment.
Yeah, it is. That's an amazing record. Napalm Dream, beginning to end, excellent record. Then they've... Tenement are a band that self-sabotages, but, like, on purpose, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it took 4 years to put out a double album with, like, bird noises and just overly long songs. Predatory Headlights came out in 2015, and I've seen it described as a process album, which is kind of just like they were exploring their songwriting process with a lot of the songs on that record, and it really needed some editing.
Well,
they had too much time to refine those songs and not do it. They didn't refine them. They just played them too long. And
a band who famously plays 15-minute sets releases a double album worth of out music. Yeah, weird. But Napalm Dream is a perfect record.
Yes. Napalm Dream is an incredible record. The songs are super catchy, and they're like noisy and experimental, and they have this really cool vibe to them. Like, they just look and sound cool.
Mm-hmm. Another good record is Sam I Am's Trips. It's the most recent Sam I Am record as far as new material goes, because they put out like a compilation and some like session albums. But Trips is a record that I think is up there with Clumsy and Astray as some of their best music.
Yeah, I haven't really listened to Trips as much, so
I listened to it nonstop the year it came out, and then it's one that It's one I go back to more often than any of their other records. It's a really a great record.
What else came out? Do we want to move on?
I think we should move on. We've been taking too long on some of these years. I do think later in the decade we get the less time we're going to spend on them. But all right, moving on to 2012, a year that is a little less defined, I feel like, which I've noticed happened gradually. So 2010 to 2011, very dominated by emo, hardcore, melodic, Latterman style pop punk. Once we start to phase out of that, it becomes less. I don't know. I don't even know what it. Punk 2010. This decade is the decade that punk got weird. I think, where no one wants to call anything punk anymore, and it's all indie rock.
Yeah.
It's all DIY.
Yeah. Because
looking at 2012, for me personally, is not as strong of a year as the previous two.
Yeah, the note I have for 2012, I am really split on this year. Because I know that my personal listening, I was probably branching out from punk a little more Americana. I feel like 2012 is that year where, like, me and like everyone I knew had like this weird pop moment.
Not me.
We were paying way too much attention to whatever was happening in mainstream pop at the moment.
Not me.
All right. Well,
I never fell for it.
But there's really good stuff. I don't see a ton of it on the charts.
Yeah, number one, Converge, All We Love Will Leave Behind. Yeah. Great Converge record. Probably better than Axe to Fall.
Definitely.
Maybe better than No Heroes, even though No Heroes has more of a personal place for me. I think objectively this record, All We Love, may be better.
Yeah, I love that record. It is really them at their peak.
Mm-hmm.
I would put it on par with No Heroes at least. I listened to that a ton.
This was a big hardcore year for me. We were playing in a hardcore band. I think I was listening to more hardcore in general. On this page, Code Orange Kids' first full-length Love is Love, Return to Dust, and Birds and Rose' first full-length You, Me, and Violence came out. And I definitely listened to those a lot. Code Orange became a monster hit. I don't think it was this record that did it. It was maybe the one after. But they were definitely very popular in the scene. And Birds and Row were like their European counterparts, essentially. They were, a Belgian band? A French band. I was listening to a lot of French hardcore for some reason I was listening to that band Elizabeth and Calvaire, and there's a few others from this may have been my most tapped into hardcore in the decade I was.
Loma Prieta's 4 came out that year. Is that the first Death Wish record?
I don't know.
I really want to say that was when they signed to Death Wish. Either way, it was huge. That was a big record.
I remember they were a band that everyone was constantly surprised by, that they were like still doing it. I don't know if it's because the shelf life of that kind of band wasn't that long. Like a screamo band's lifespan is typically 5 years, and then they put out a couple records and nobody listens to them until they break up. Loma Prieta are still active, right?
Yeah.
They started in 2005.
Somewhat.
So we're going on 15 years, which is unheard of in screamo. And it may help that they are more experimental than a lot of screamo bands. I did not realize that Ludax had members in Loma Prieta. Good old Ludax, a band who probably started some shit.
The second page on Rate Your Music is a little more indicative of what I remember from that year. There was another Joyce Manor record.
Mm-hmm. This was that one that's 15 minutes long. It's a very short record, even though it's a full length.
There was another Basement record.
Yeah, that was a pretty big deal.
There was
Off put out there.
Yeah.
Man, that was a
Self-titled
band
album.
we were all excited for no reason.
It has to be good, right?
It's all of the good Black Flags minus Henry Rollins.
There's Grow Up Dude by You Blew It.
Mm-hmm.
People loved that record.
Yeah.
I did not.
You blew it.
There's Awkward Breeds by the Sidekicks.
Band
That's a
I
good record.
never got into them.
I want to say I heard some songs from that record that probably around that time period and was interested and just didn't dive in. They would come up for me later with probably their next album after that one. But The First Masked Intruder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big deal. I was not into it.
Feels too early, but maybe it's just surprising how long they have captivated punk's attention.
With one joke.
Yeah, a bad joke.
Yeah. It is a bad joke. I don't know why punks were so willing to embrace such a problematic band.
This is I guess this is the autumn of Midwest emo.
Yeah.
The waning years. There's a Joie de Vivre record. There's a Duck Little Brother Duck record. Sirs.
Well, this is also the beginning of the next wave of emo because Modern Baseball put out Sports that year. God,
True.
punks, that's what happened. Mid-2000s or 2010s, punk decided they like sports because there were like 2 bands called Sports.
You Blew It's got a football guy on the cover. Yeah, and here's Dowsing. There's some more of that next wave of emo. So
Yeah, so Dikembe's Broad Shoulders. The next wave is here.
Dads.
Ah, fuck that band. That band that wasn't good, that everybody pretended to like, and then also they turned out to be assholes?
Yeah. They were like big rock stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forever. Your Leap. I guess it was a little more active than I remember. Than I give it
Well,
credit
this
for.
is the world
I
is...
stopped paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I stopped paying attention, so it died.
Yeah. It did. Should have.
Yeah. Some bad people got in there. Yeah. Well, what were you listening to in 2012? Because looking at it now, there's not a lot that I would go back to today.
John K. Samson Made Us All Cry Again.
Yes. Is this Provincial?
Yeah.
Oh, the streets, Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, filled with smoke. The doorbell rings. I put my controller down and pick it up, shoot some things. Later, the darkness hits reboot, and the loneliness increases. she'd come back home when I write my master's thesis. Oh, the hour.
Oh, you know, I used to think Winter Wheat was his best solo record, and then I listened to Provincial again, and then I listened to Winter Wheat, and I think Provincial might be better, but I don't know. John K. Samson is the god of sad boys.
Yeah.
He can make everyone cry.
Provincial has a little more variety, I think.
Yeah.
And it probably makes it...
You know what? Winter Wheat also has the Final Virtute song. So that may be why everybody thinks that's the better record. Because he got us again. You got me again, Samson.
Yeah. I have a note here that says, I wasted a lot of time listening to 10 Stories by Me Without You. Tried to make that work.
Tried to just make it click.
It's like, I love Me Without You.
Why isn't this working?
Yeah, just couldn't. Despite the fact that at this point, I wasn't listening to their older records.
No, not anymore. Because they were almost 10 years old at this point. Why would you? Lucero put out Women at Work. Not a punk record, but punk
adjacent.
Punk friendly, yeah. I forgot to mention Superchunk put out Majesty Shredding in 2010.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some more.
I didn't listen to it then, so
yeah,
I don't have it here, but
that was the comeback record for Superchunk. That was the one that people were like, "Hey, that Superchunk band's good. I didn't know that." You know, it was basically like a whole new generation of punks discovered Superchunk when Majesty Shredding came out, and then we were like, and now we retroactively learned how great they were.
Yeah. I have my note about Women in Work. It says they kind of missed the point of what we like about Lucero. I feel like Women in Work is the yeah, you guys like songs about drinking, right? Being a bar band or whatever. It's like, no.
It may be
we like the drinking part, but bad drinking. Not fun drinking.
Well,
that's not what we want from Lucero.
Well, they did that 1372 Overton Park, which was kind of like we're a bar band, and everybody was like, "This is fun." They introduced the horns on that record, and we were
and
like,
I really like that record.
It's different. But then they were like, "And you want more?" And then we were like, "Well, we like the first 2 tracks, which is the only 2 tracks they still play."
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the rest of that album sounds like. It probably sounds like those first 2.
I listened to it a lot. I did.
I did too, but I don't. The songs sound like Women at Work.
Yeah.
This is Lucero. Famously, his songs are also about nothing. who he's.
I'm leaving. Why? I'm just leaving.
Oh, Juniper's on there. That's a good song.
Yeah, sure. What's Juniper about?
It's
about a girl named Juniper?
Yep. That song's in the movie Mud. Anyway, yeah.
Lucero adjacent. We've got Handwritten by Gaslight.
I was fully out of Gaslight after American Slang because I was like, I don't like this as much. I don't think I ever listened to Handwritten.
I like Handwritten a lot. I think it might actually be their best record. 59 Sound is really special, and it is really important, and it has more of a sound, hence the name. But to me, Handwritten, I think they were just really good songwriters at that point and really good musicians on that record. And there's some variety, more variety than American Slang. I don't know. I think it's a really good record. I think a lot of punks didn't give it a chance and they missed out. But anyway.
I was listening to Sundial's album When I Couldn't Breathe. It's probably their best record. That's the one on Asian Man Records. That record was one that I listened quite. They're one of those bands that you're like, you listen to it a lot, and then you don't think you know the words, and then you put the record on, and you're singing along to every song. You're like, huh, how'd that happen? And it's like, oh no, you just listened to it repeatedly. But I was also listening to Forgetter's album, their full length.
you believe me? Is this something you see?
White that year.
I was trying to like that album.
You don't. So, what is your opinion on that record now?
Now, I mean, it's been a really long time since I've listened to the whole album, but it's got some really weak songs.
Rivet Head.
Oh, Ribbon Head.
Oh, Deadly Death. He did a lot. Oh, oh, I live in a pineapple under the. For me,
the great songs on there are songs that I knew from seeing them live, but I don't know. I think I could cut that album down to a really good EP.
well, I'll say it's probably my second favorite Blake record post for Jawbreaker. I like it better than Four Cornered Night and Orange Rhyming Dictionary. I know it's blasphemy to say that, but I don't like the weird guitar on Orange Rhyming Dictionary. The funk guitar. Wow, 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 wow. Like Red Hot it's not the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. My favorite is Perfecting Loneliness. You know what we were listening to in 2012? Our Friends. This is the year. Old Flings put out their record, Spite. Odds Are put out their record, One Word. Did Muscle and Bone put their record out this year too? No, that may be the year after.
Yeah, their self-titled was in 2012.
Yeah. So, yeah, we were listening to Our Friends. Muscle and Bone, self-titled. Old Flings, Spite, which I've, at the time, said was my favorite record. Oh, Just Die put out Since the Day We Were Born. Odds Are, One Word. Was there a Barrow record, too? I'm trying to think if there's any other of our friends around this time. We were still playing in our band. We were still doing stuff. Probably explains why I listen to so much hardcore still. I do think, if you've never listened to Old Flings, Spite, there's a good chance you haven't, because they didn't have a ton of success, because they only released a handful of EPs and one album, and they played Fest 3 or 4 years in a row, and that was probably their biggest exposure. But I cannot recommend that record more. I mean, I know we're friends with those guys, but objectively, it is a great punk record. It's but in the vein of like a Knapsack and a Sam I Am. It's just wonderful. I love it so much.
Must be the way that you carry yourself high up in the clouds. It keeps everybody talking, kissing your feet, following you around.
Be honest, I don't have a lot more from 2012 that I was really, really digging.
Looking at my Last FM listening charts for that year, I have a little note here at the end that says, so many questions. A$AP Rock? Torch? Baroness still? And then a comment that says, that POS record sucked.
Is that the one?
It's the one that took forever to come out after Never Better, and
It had a cool single.
it had one good single, and other than that, it was
Fine.
forgettable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than the one after. Took even longer to make that one. Yeah, that's weird.
This is also this is not punk, but Wrecking Ball by Bruce Springsteen came out that year. And it's the record that I feel like a lot of punks, myself included, who got into Bruce Springsteen through Gaslight, Anthem, that's the record where we started with Bruce as far as his new music. And it's probably the record where most of those people stopped. Because you listen to it and then you realize it's like, oh yeah, no, right. I mean, it's been like 30 years, he's not writing the same kind of music. It's totally different. I still think it's a good record, even if there are some questionable production choices. But yeah. Moving on to 2013.
Yeah, I guess I should pull that up. When you said Wrecking Ball in 2012, I thought it was Miley Cyrus. Is that the same year? That's probably
No.
too early. Yeah.
No, that's the record where he did Stomp Clap
Oh,
indie folk rock before everyone was doing Stomp Clap indie folk rock.
that's weird. I didn't know he
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
I guess
It's
because
not
that
exactly,
sound
but it's
wasn't on
pretty
the radar
close.
yet. It would be a couple more years for Mumfreeze and Son.
Yeah.
Mumfreeze McGee. All right, I got 2013 pulled. So 2013.
Send it to me. Oh, never mind. I just got it.
Yep. Number 1 is Dillinger Escape Plan. One of Us is the Killer. Who gives a shit?
Nerds.
Number 2 is Nails Abandoned All Life. Okay, big deal because it had been a couple years, and in a hardcore time, that is a very long time between records. This is 2013. The first one was 2010. So, yeah, people were very excited for that record, and I don't think it disappointed. I think people loved it when it came out. It's still well regarded, it looks like now. Even though supposedly that Todd Jones dude's a dick. I didn't like it as much as Unsilent Death, but it was a good record. I can't fault it for anything. There's some weird 3, 4, and 5. The Drones are an Australian punk band that I think I like, but I need to really dive into more. And who now have members of that band have gone on to form Tropical Fuckstorm, who show up on these punk charts all the time now. Lord Snow, I think that's retroactive. That's a emo violence screamo band. Which, by the way, emo violence is not a separate genre from screamo. Why does that get listed like that? Number 5 is the Wonder Years.
I think people try and use the emo violence tag for like the really fast, screechy screamo stuff.
It's still screamo.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It doesn't need.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Number 7 is Touche Amores is Survived By. Okay.
I can't tell you if I listened to that record or not.
No.
Like I said, they fell off for me.
Mac Taverscans 2 came out that year. A band I got into after this record. They were kind of ahead of the game, though, as far as what indie and post-punk would become in the second half of the decade. Because this Mac Taverscan is what indie rock sounds like now. Or last year, maybe. More last year. Cold 80s style, post-punk, melodic, singing about traumas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny to think that record came out in 2013, and then it would take 5 years for the rest of the... I guess that's, Europeans are always ahead of us as far as thought processes. Number 12 is World's a Beautiful Place. I'm No Longer Afraid to Die, Whenever, If Ever. That's a band that has stayed around way longer than I thought they would, who I also have not listened to since 2010. So, I don't know what they even sound like now.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I kept trying with them and nothing was ever sticking. And this is probably where I just didn't even listen to it. We've got Oathbreaker, Eros Anteros. Mm-hmm. A pretty hyped record.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool record.
Resonant Desperate by State Faults.
Yeah.
I definitely remember that being pretty hyped as well.
State Faults are, even to this day, are still pretty hyped. They just put a record this year.
One of the biggest records, and I didn't listen to it then, but number 22 on this list is self-titled album by Pup.
listen to it then?
No.
Weird.
Maybe like the very tail end of the.
I mean, it came out in October, so
but
maybe
it came out in October, so
maybe you got into it. Oh, I want to say maybe I had it on like a my best of list, and then you started listening to it.
did we see them at Fest that year?
That year, yes, when
Yeah.
they were dressed like hot dogs and ketchup and mustard, and they did the
Yeah.
Beastie Boys cover. I want to say that was that year.
Oh yeah, I guess I did start. I guess I felt like that record came out a lot earlier than
I thought it did too, weirdly,
that, but
because I knew those songs pretty well by the time. Because they're not a band I would have got into that close to Fest.
or did we not see them until 2014?
That could be what it was. I'm trying to see if it was released online earlier. Speaking of Pup, I listened to their 2019 album yesterday. It's really good. They do their thing so well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It says it came out in October. Yeah, maybe I did listen to it then, but maybe we didn't see them at Fest until 2014. You may be right. I was definitely listening to that record when it came out, though. Yeah, Pup are the punk band right now. You know, like punk sound has changed so much that no one really even knows what punk is anymore. But you listen to Pup, and that's punk rock. Like, there's no mistaking. So even in 2019, they're kind of like the most recognizable best punk band we have, because everybody else is now like, it's DIY or it's indie. It's like, we don't want to call anything punk because the Warped Tour guys ruined it. What else we got here?
We have.
Look, there's Nouns.
Yeah.
That's happened.
Yeah.
Is this the beginning of punks thinking they're shoegazers, or is that another year away?
It's probably right around the right time.
What were your personal listening habits in 2013?
There's a couple. I just want to point out. Speaking of bands that I can't believe people are still talking about, but Foxing, who put out the Albatross year.
Who's talking about Foxing?
I saw their name somewhere like this week.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. They're still around, I guess.
They were boring then.
Yeah. That Beast Milk record was.
I'm pretty sure you're lying about that.
No one would stop talking about that Beast Milk record.
You keep telling me that, and I'm like, no one knows who this band is. What are you talking about? Stop lying.
I saw that on Tumblr every single day for like a month when it came out.
No, this isn't real. This is like Letterkenny being a real TV show. This isn't a real band.
I mean, I don't know what Beast Milk sounds like. Oh.
You've said that so many times, and I still have yet to hear a single person talk about them.
Yeah, well, no one talks about them now. They did then. And we get The Beauty Between by Reviver.
Yep, I was going to say, Beauty Between by Reviver and Off With Their Heads Home came out the same year, and I listened to them both back to back, nonstop, over and over and over again, wore both of those records out, essentially, and then went away going, I don't think I like these bands anymore. So either I burned myself out on them because I tried to force myself to like records that I didn't like, but I listened to them too much. But that same year, Iron Chic put out their second album, The Constant One. Probably I think The Constant One is the weakest of the three Iron Chic records. I don't know if that's fair to say, but the first one's so perfect, and I think I liked the most recent one a little bit more than this one. This one had a lot of anticipation going into it, though. So I don't know if it was going to live up to the expectation.
The Constant One didn't live up to the hype.
I don't think it could.
But it got close enough
that it was still one of my favorite records that year.
Yeah. And I still like that record a lot.
Yeah, I still do. I don't listen to it as often, though.
Because, I mean, it's got, it's got Spooky Action at a Distance. Got Wolf Dick's Road. Serious House on Serious Earth. Those are great songs.
I mean, The End and... Or the end, is that actually a song? I think that one might be a sound effect. Yeah, Castle Numbskull. There's a song with Erica from Reviver, which I think is maybe Don't Drive Angry. Yeah.
I think probably one of my most listened to punk records that year was My Shame Is True by Alkaline Trio.
she's innocent of victimless crime. Now I don't give a shit and I never drop dime on my baby, though she gave it to the FBI. I lied to the FBI when I told them that I did it to save her hide. I told them that the plan for the heist was mine. Now I'm stuck and I'm fucking doing federal time. Locked deep inside, I'm doing time for you. Just got the letter saying we are through. And I don't give a damn if I get out again. I'm doing time for her. She lied to the FBI when she told them she was innocent of victimless crime. Now I don't give a shit.
I think it's better than their most recent. I would put it pretty high in their discography.
I'd say it's probably their best record post Good Morning.
Yeah. And when it came out, I went back and started listening to a lot of their older records again. Kind of reignited my love for them. And it's funny. It's the only album by them that Katie likes.
Really?
I know I've played other stuff for her, and she just didn't seem to acknowledge it at all.
Weird.
But she actually really liked that record and listened to it on her own.
She didn't listen to Is This Thing Cursed?
No, I don't think so.
I will also say that this is the year... My Shame Is True also came out with the Broken Wing EP.
Yeah.
And goddamn, is that Broken Wing EP good. It's only 4 tracks. 3 of them are sung by Dan, I believe. And they may be some of the best songs they've ever written. Broken Wing, especially. The song Broken Wing itself, especially. So it was the combination of Broken Wing and My Shame Is True. And I think everybody was like, Alkaline Trio's back, baby! Now, get that Skiba in Blink-182!
Yeah. I also have apparently listened to LP2 by Restorations a lot that year. But I remember even thinking at the end of the year, I was probably making my albums of the year list. And I was probably looking at my charts and I was like, I listened to that record that much?
I was listening to Superchunk's I Hate Music.
Yes. And that's next on my list.
A lot.
That's when I got into Superchunk.
That's when it worked. That's when it clicked for me. I knew they were a good band before I Hate Music because I'd heard Majesty Shredding, but I hadn't fully dove into them, especially their back catalog. And then I Hate Music came out, and that's when I'm like, let's do the rest of their stuff. And then I was like, oh, this band's amazing. Superchunk is probably the best band from North Carolina?
Yeah, sure.
I guess. I can't think of anything else that would top them. Yeah, I Hate Music. Weirdly regarded as one of the people's lesser favorite Superchunk records. I know the band themselves does not regard it well. But I also think there was a lot of personal stuff going on with the band at the time. Yeah. They're a close friend of the band passed away while they were recording the record, so it's a negative record. It's called I Hate Music specifically because I think the line is, I hate music, what is it worth? Can't bring anyone back to this earth or something along those lines. So it's a negative record, full of a lot of negative energy, and not the productive kind like What a Time to Be Alive, which that's more rage of, politics. But it's wow. Looking at Rate Your Music, it's the lowest rated record. And to be honest, I don't, by Superchunk.
I think it's a better record than What a Time to Be Alive.
Maybe. Let me look at the songs real quick. Me and You and Jackie Matu. It's one of their best songs ever. I like Low F. I like Void. I like Out of the Sun. You know what? I might like it a little more. You're right.
I think it is. I think it is a better record. I think it's
strange.
It's more introspective and it's more personal.
It is weird. I get why they don't like it. It is weird that everyone else also doesn't like it as much.
And I don't know. I mean, I wonder how much of it is that it was the follow-up to Majesty Shredding, which is really generally pretty well regarded. And
yeah, I mean, Majesty Shredding is probably their best record since Here's Where the Strings Come In. I think it's better than Indoor Living and Come Pick Me Up and Here's to Shutting Up, and it's better than the ones that have come after. So yeah, I'd say.
But yeah, I don't know. I Hate Music is a really good record.
I love it. It's one of my favorite records that year. I know I listened to it a lot.
What else did we listen to a lot?
Comadre's self-titled final album.
Yes.
Where
That record was great.
that was where it clicked. Like, Comadre were this, like, legendary live band, but for some reason it never quite came off in the recordings, and then when this record came out, it worked. Something happened. The songwriting was there. That record is crazy. They do so many different things on that record.
I think this record probably, too, is where Jack kind of really settled into his recording style.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really worked with these songs on this record. I remember reading something about how they, like, when they recorded the drums, like, they took all of the cymbals away. Like, the drummer had no cymbals to hit. He just could only play on his drums when they recorded, like, the bass drum tracks. And then they overdubbed in the cymbals. So that's why you get, like, all this, like, real heavy toms and rumbly, like, really full-sounding drum kit. And it's not, like, your typical, like, punk hardcore record with a lot of crash hits. It gives it a really cool sound that sounds like nothing else I've ever heard, honestly. I can't think of any punk record that really sounds like that.
As far as 2013 goes, there's probably only 3 more records that I really listened to extensively. Night Marchers, Alez. I don't know how you say that.
Ale.
It's the second Night Marchers album. It's John Reese from Rocket from the Crypt and Drive Like Jehu and Hot Snakes. It's like the band after Hot Snakes that's the most like Hot Snakes that took its sound and merged in with Hot Snakes the most. I was listening to that record a lot.
I actually just found a copy of that record.
It's a great
this
record.
week. I love that album. I love the Night Marchers. I love John Reese. He can stand on me anytime.
That year, Bars of Gold Wheels came out, which, is that better than Of Gold? Or is
No, it didn't. That came out in 2014.
It came out in 2013. It's on the 2013 chart. Yeah, 2013.
Huh.
I think it was even on my Tumblr page for 2013.
Well, I also just listened to it a ton in 2014.
Yeah.
So. Better than Of Gold.
Yeah, it is.
It's such a good record. That's a band that just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about them later.
Let's see. I was listening to Nona, their album Through the Head. That's the one that got remastered and re-released on 6131, like the same year that it had come out on that other label. Very weird decision. And then they immediately broke up. So it's like, I don't know if something was supposed to happen with that band, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do more, and then classic band thing, oops, we broke up. But Mimi, you need to be in more bands, because you did Year of Glad, 2 EPs. Is there another band that she's in?
I'm not sure.
She does some guest vocals on our record that came out this year as well. But yeah,
2013. Did Painted Black put out more than one EP, or was it just Invisible?
they put out Invisible. That's the only one I have listed here.
Yeah.
I think 2013 is also the year I got sick of Self Defense Family. You Are Beneath Her, which was not really a record. The Creative Adult and Grazine split, and the Good Time Boys split, and the Corrections Officer and Me. I think I was just done. Oh, you know what came out in 2013? Cinder and Smoke. Nice effort, guys.
Yeah.
The less said about that EP, the better.
Yeah. Let's move on quickly.
Yeah. I don't know.
Texas and Tennessee by Lucero also came out 2013.
It did?
The best thing they did have done this decade.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think that pretty much covers 2013 for me.
Cool. All right, moving into 2014. And that will do it for this week. Come back next week for part 2 of our Best of the 2010s. Please continue to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're at PunkLottoPod. And our email address is punklotopod@gmail.com. And our website is punklottopod.simplecast.fm. Bye.